All right, so are you ready? Ready to really dive deep, into this whole future of the U.S. dollar thing?
The dollar, yeah.
Yeah, things are getting kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but
I've seen some headlines.
yeah, there was this AP article recently, all about, well,
About?
about how Trump is reacting to the BRICS nations, and
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's about them possibly, moving away from the dollar.
Makes sense. There's a lot of...
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and it's something that's been...
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna unpack it all,
Undercut.
what Trump is saying and what BRICS is all about, and
Yeah, for sure. We got, what
any
is...
question?
Is the dollar, really going to be replaced?
Is gonna lose its top spot?
Is it the end?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe not the end.
Okay.
But maybe the beginning of the end.
Okay. So first, what is BRICS?
BRICS, it stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Those were the original members. But recently they've added a few. So Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, UAE.
Wow.
And they've got more countries who want to join too.
Oh, wow. So it's a growing.
It's growing. It's definitely growing. And it's not just a random group of countries, It's
right.
a huge and a rapidly growing part of the global economy.
So they have a lot of power.
Yeah.
And that's probably a big reason why they're looking to ditch the dollar.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, they see it as, the dollar being so strong.
Right.
It gives the U.S. a ton of control, maybe too much control, and they're kind of tired of it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
And, Trump, when I read about his tariff threat, I was like, wait a minute, can he even do that?
The tariffs? Well, he does have a history of using tariffs, as a bargaining chip. I mean, just think about how he dealt with Mexico and Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And especially with China.
Oh, the trade war.
Yeah, the trade war.
Oh, I mean, did that even work?
Well, I don't know about work. I mean, the trade war with China.
Yeah.
It cost everyone a lot of money, consumers and businesses on both sides.
Right.
So, yeah, so maybe 100% tariffs. It sounds scary.
Yeah, yeah.
But, whether he could actually do it and what would happen if he did.
Right.
It's a whole other thing.
So the real question is, I mean, is the dollar really in danger?
Yeah.
How much does it actually,
dominate?
Yeah, dominate.
Well, right now, the dollar is 58% of global foreign exchange reserves.
That's more than half.
More than half.
Wow, yeah.
It's a lot.
And most of the central banks in the world, they keep their money. They keep their reserves in U.S. dollars.
So that's why, people always talk about the dollar being so powerful.
Right. And it's also the main currency that's used for trading stuff, like oil.
Yeah. And
that gives the U.S. a lot of leverage. But, like we're seeing with BRICS, it can also create some, problems.
Problems, yeah. I mean, there's friction, there's resentment.
Putin's been talking about that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, he's been saying that the U.S. is weaponizing the dollar.
He has. He's arguing that, because the U.S. has so much control over the financial system, they can punish countries, with sanctions and stuff.
Yeah.
If those countries aren't doing what the U.S. wants. And he's not the only one who feels this way. There's actually this thing, it's called the Atlantic Council model.
Yeah.
And what it does is it looks at the dollar, its global standing, but it looks at a bunch of different things like trade and finance and, geopolitical stuff.
So it's kind of like a big...
Just like a big...
analysis.
Yeah, an analysis of how the dollar's doing in the world.
So what do they say?
Well, they say that the dollar is safe, at least for now.
Okay.
For the foreseeable future. But the long term, that's less clear. There's this feeling that we're moving toward a world where power is,
more spread out.
More spread out, yeah. More even.
Okay, yeah.
And that could mean that the dollar is going to...
go down.
Yeah, decline, but it won't be overnight.
Right.
It'll be gradual.
Gradual, okay.
But those, the seeds of change...
Yeah.
They're definitely being planted.
All right, so let's go back to BRICS for a second.
Yeah.
Why are they, I mean, what's their big motivation for doing this? Is it just about economics or is it more?
It's a little of both, honestly.
Right.
I mean, they definitely want to be less reliant on the U.S.
Okay.
Less reliant on the U.S. financial system. They want more control over their own economies, be able to make their own decisions without having to worry about the U.S.
Right. So it's about, autonomy?
Autonomy, yeah. But it's also about, challenging how things are. Like, they want a system where they have more of a say.
Okay.
Where it's less about the U.S. and more about, sharing, like a more balanced.
Balance. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a power struggle.
Kinda, yeah. Take Russia, for example. They're actually working on creating their own version of SWIFT.
What's SWIFT?
Oh, that's the system, the global system.
Okay.
That banks use to, send messages to each other and process transactions.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Russia wants to be able to,
Go around it?
Yeah, go around it, bypass all the Western sanctions and trade with whoever they want.
Wow.
Without having to use the dollar.
So they're like building their own system?
They are.
That's pretty ambitious.
It is. And it shows just how serious they are about,
About making this happen.
About making this happen, yeah. Now, I don't know if they'll succeed,
Right.
Like create a real alternative. We'll see, yeah. But the fact that they're even doing this,
Yeah.
it shows you that things are changing. Things are shifting.
Yeah. So this is all pretty high-level stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people listening are like, okay, this is interesting, but what does it mean for me?
Right. Like, how does this actually affect people?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into, the nitty-gritty of how all this is actually happening and what the future looks like, let's talk about what it could mean for, the average person.
Absolutely.
You, the listener.
Let's do it. I bet some folks are thinking, is this whole de-dollarization thing for real?
Yeah, like, is it actually happening or is it just talk?
Well, it's definitely happening. I mean, it's gradual, but you can already see signs of it.
Okay, like what? What are we seeing?
Well, one thing is there are more and more of those like bilateral trade agreements where countries are like, hey, let's use our own currencies instead of the U.S. dollar.
Okay.
China and Russia are a big example.
Right.
They're doing more and more with the yuan and the ruble.
Really just like cutting out the dollar completely.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's smart. It makes them less dependent on the U.S. financial system. Right. Plus, it gives them some protection if sanctions come up.
Oh, that's a good point.
And another thing we're seeing is countries diversifying their foreign exchange reserves.
Okay.
So instead of holding most of their reserves in dollars, they're branching out.
Interesting.
Yeah, mixing it up with other currencies, maybe even some gold.
They're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Exactly. It's all about spreading the risk, especially for those countries that are trying to, distance themselves from the U.S. a little bit.
Right. Makes sense. And it seems like BRICS is really leading this whole movement.
They are. They're definitely key players. I mean, they've even been talking about creating a whole new international reserve currency,
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Like a rival to the dollar.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. It's a pretty ambitious goal, but you can't deny they're serious about this.
So let's say, just for argument's sake, that the world really does start moving away from the dollar.
Yeah.
What are the options then? Like, what could this new system look like?
Yeah. Well, that's where it gets really interesting. There are a lot of ideas floating around. Some experts think a basket of currencies could be the way to go.
Okay.
Representing all the major economies.
So kind of like a global mix.
Yeah, exactly. Like a diversified portfolio, but for currencies.
That makes sense. More balanced, maybe.
But it would spread the risk, and no single currency would have too much power.
So what else is out there?
Well, there's also the idea of regional currency blocks.
Okay, what's that?
So basically you have countries in a specific region, and they all decide to use a shared currency for all their trade and financial stuff. So like imagine a euro, but for Asia.
Oh, I see. Like a regional euro.
Exactly. It could really simplify trade and boost regional integration.
Okay, that's interesting. And what about like digital currencies? Are those part of the conversation?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about things like central bank digital currencies or even cryptocurrencies potentially playing a much bigger role in the future.
Oh, that's a whole other can of worms.
It is, for sure. But the main point is the future of global finance is wide open right now. It's exciting, but also a little unpredictable.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the U.S. for a minute. If the dollar loses its top spot, does that mean America loses its superpower status too?
That's the big question, right? I mean, there's no doubt that a serious decline in the dollar could really shake things up for the U.S. economy.
In what way?
Well, it could make it a lot more expensive for the government to borrow money.
Oh, I see.
And that could lead to inflation, which could weaken the whole economy.
So it's not just about the dollar, it's about the whole country's economic power.
Exactly. Now, it's important to remember, this isn't going to happen overnight.
Right. It's a slow process.
It's a long-term trend.
Yeah.
And the U.S. still has a lot going for it,
Yeah.
Strong financial market, strong economy, relatively stable politically, all those things are going to help the dollar even as the world changes.
So it's not like the U.S. is doomed or anything.
Not at all. But it's important for the U.S. to adapt, embrace this changing world, figure out how to work with other countries.
So instead of like Trump's approach with the tariffs and threats.
Yeah, maybe not so much that. More about cooperation and finding common ground.
Makes sense. So what can the U.S. do to make sure it stays strong in this new world?
Well, I think focusing on relationships with allies is a good start.
Okay.
Building trust and finding ways to cooperate, that's going to be essential in this new world where power is more spread out.
So diplomacy is key.
Exactly. And the U.S. also needs to stay ahead of the curve, Keep innovating, keep investing in the economy.
Right, because a strong economy is going to attract investment.
Exactly. And that's going to help keep the dollar attractive, too.
So playing the long game, basically.
Yeah.
Being flexible and forward-thinking.
Precisely. It's about figuring out how to thrive in this new multipolar world.
Giving us a lot to think about. It sounds like we're at a real turning point.
We are. There's so much going on right now,
Yeah.
Global power dynamics, these new financial systems emerging, the potential for big changes.
And it's not just theoretical.
Yeah.
It's going to affect real people's lives.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about how these global shifts could actually impact you, the listener.
Okay, let's get personal.
Because at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
All right, so we're back. And, we've been talking about this whole, future of the dollar thing.
Yeah.
And how things are, shifting globally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot to take in. But, what does it actually mean for,
the average person?
Yeah, for people listening.
Right.
How is this going to affect our lives?
Well, it might seem like all this stuff is really high level, kind of abstract.
Yeah.
But it can actually have some pretty real consequences for, your everyday life.
Like what?
Well, think about it like this. Think about the things that matter most to you.
Okay.
And how those things connect to, the bigger picture, the economy.
Right.
I bet a lot of people listening are thinking about travel,
Oh, for sure.
Vacations, trips.
Yeah.
So, what happens if the dollar gets weaker?
Yeah, does that mean my, European vacation?
Out the window?
Yeah, is it going to be way too expensive?
It could be, yeah. If the dollar really weakens against, the euro or other currencies.
Right.
Your travel budget's not going to go as far.
Right.
It could get pricey.
And it's not just, big trips either, right?
Yeah. No,
it's even if you're just, going across the border.
Yeah, or buying something online.
Yeah.
From a, company in another country, it's all going to cost more.
So it's not just about, the dollar being, a symbol.
Yeah.
It's about, our actual purchasing power.
No. And think about this. All this stuff we buy from other countries.
Oh, yeah.
Like electronics, clothes, everyday stuff. If the dollar's weaker, all that stuff gets more expensive.
So, everything could cost more.
It's definitely a possibility. There are a lot of things that affect prices.
Right.
But this is one of them.
Okay, so travel, imported goods. What else? What else should people be thinking about?
Well, investments are another big one.
Okay.
If you've got money invested in foreign markets,
right,
and the dollar weakens, when you bring that money back to the U.S.,
yeah,
it's going to be worth less.
So it's not just about what we're spending, it's about
our savings.
Yeah, investment.
So this is serious stuff.
Yeah, what's happening globally, it can have a real impact on your personal finances.
Well, what do we do?
What do we do? That's the big question.
Yeah, how do we prepare for all this?
Well, there's no magic bullet,
Right.
But here are a few things to keep in mind.
Okay.
First, stay informed.
Okay.
Pay attention to what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
The news, the economy, all that stuff.
Keep up with it.
Keep up with it.
Yeah.
The more you know, the better decisions you can make.
Knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. And second, diversify.
Okay.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket,
With your investments or even your income streams.
Right. Spread it out.
Spread it out. Same thing with travel. Even just, don't rely on everything being the same forever.
Yeah, don't assume the dollar's always going to be strong.
Exactly.
Got it.
And, the last thing is be adaptable.
Okay.
The world is changing.
Yeah.
And being able to, roll with the punches, that's going to be more and more important.
Be flexible.
Be flexible, yeah.
So basically we've talked about, the dollar potentially going down and these new systems popping up.
Yeah.
And what it all means for, us regular folks.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah, we have.
But it's a big topic,
It is a big topic.
There's a lot more to explore.
Yeah. But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to leave everyone with one final thought.
Okay.
Like, as we're going through all these changes, with the dollar and everything, it's a good time to ask ourselves, like, what kind of system do we actually want? What kind of global financial system?
That's a great question.
Yeah. And how can we, play a role in making that happen?
It's not just about reacting to change,
Right.
It's about, actively shaping the future.
Yeah.
And we can all be a part of that.
That's a good point. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you learned something and that it maybe gets you thinking, about all this stuff.
Definitely.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep questioning the world around you.